Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget. Before the drought had a name, and before the wind lost its patience, there was a village built around a patient baobab. In that village lived a boy named Kweku, quick of feet and quicker of questions. His grandmother, Mama Sewa, used to say, "A question is a calabash floating on the river. Catch it, and you may drink." Kweku had caught many calabashes. He knew where lizards hid when hawks circled, where the termites tunneled through dry earth, and how the moon slipped between palm fronds like a shy visitor. But when the sky stopped sending rain and questions ran dry, the millet bowed and did not rise. Goats licked dust for salt. The village drum, old as the oldest oath, hung in the council hut and cracked from thirst. The elders muttered remedies that felt like old songs sung with no voices. And the baobab, patient as always, watched the village with 1,000 green eyes and said nothing. One evening, when the sun was a red coin dropping behind the hills, Mama Sewa called Kweku and placed in his palm a small, smooth seed. "This," she said, "is from the baobab's memory. Plant it when someone offers you a bargain that tastes like honey but leaves your tongue thirsty." Kweku rolled the seed between his fingers and felt it hum faintly, as if it knew a tune he did not. That night, the dry wind carried the smell of roasted groundnuts from nowhere at all. A bell rang once, twice, thrice, thin as a mosquito's legs, and all at once a street appeared along the village path where there had been only dust. Stalls of woven reed, lanterns made from gourds carved with stars, and a doorway that faced no walls. The night market of borrowed things had arrived. Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget. Kweku had heard whispers of the night market from travelers who traded salt for stories. They said you could borrow anything there. Rain for a day, a name for a newborn, a path through thorns, even a heartbeat for a heart too tired. You only had to return what you borrowed. That was the rule, older than thunder. He slipped from his sleeping mat while the village snored like tired drums. The stalls were full of things that had no place in daylight. A woman sold cool shadows folded like cloth. A boy no older than Kweku rented echoes in clay jars for people whose laughs had gone missing. A man without a shadow sat behind a table piled high with hourglasses. Sand trembled in their bellies like restless bees. At the center of the market stood a stall made from 4 walking sticks and a roof of woven moonlight. Behind it sat a small old woman with eyes like fish scale and a smile like a knife's quiet. Her headscarf fluttered, though no wind moved. Beside her lay a drum the size of a calabash, patched with leather and laced with cowrie shells. The sign in front of her said, "Borrowed rain, fair terms, no complaints." Kweku stepped closer. "Please, Nana," he said, "because anyone older than your patience is Nana. Our drums are cracked, our wells are sad, and even the frogs have moved away. What must be borrowed for rain?" The old woman tapped the drum. "Rain is rude. It doesn't come when called, only when coaxed. But it answers music. Borrow my drum for 7 days and beat it at dawn when the sky's ears open." "What must I return?" Kweku asked. The woman's smile stayed thin and sharp. "You know the rule. Borrowed things must be returned. You will return the drum on the 8th dawn, full of whatever it has taught you." "That is all?" said Kweku, half afraid of the honey in the bargain. "That is all. she said, unless you strike it for greed. He did not know what greed sounded like on a drum, but he nodded. The old woman pressed the drum into his hands. It was warm, as if someone had set it in the sun and then wrapped it in a story. One more thing, she said, and her fish-scale eyes flashed like a river that couldn't decide which way to run. If you are offered a shorter path, walk the longer one. Kwaku bowed and carried the drum back through the lantern-lit stalls. The market shimmered like a heat mirage, and then he was alone with the drum and the crickets, and the kind of silence that sits beside you like an old friend. Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget. First dawn. Kwaku woke before the rooster could remember his own name. He climbed the low hill outside the village and struck the drum gently with his palm. Toom, it said, like a frog clearing its throat. Toon toom, it said, like water thinking about leaving a pot. Clouds gathered like shy goats. 3 leaves turned their faces up, and a lizard blinked slowly, pleased. It did not rain, but the wind smelled less tired. Second dawn. He climbed again and played a new rhythm he had heard from traders at the market. Toom-kpa, toom-kpa, toom. The drum's belly answered with a vibration that tickled his bones. This time, gray clouds stumbled in from the west, tripping over the hills, and a brief lace of drizzle stitched across the fields. The village children laughed, surprising themselves. The dust lay down politely for an hour, then stood up again. Third dawn. Kwaku played the rhythm of grinding millet, the rhythm of paddles on the river, the rhythm of grandmother's pestle, beating garlic and pepper into a paste of fire. The drum swelled with a sound like the first story ever told. Rain fell in careful threads, enough to wet the ground and leave the air sweet, not enough to fill a single pot. Still, the elders nodded at Kwaku as if he were portioning good news. The drum grew heavier each day, as if it was swallowing the sky's stubbornness. By the 5th dawn, water had become a rumor that the goats believed and the ants did not. On the 6th, true rain came, a confident patter that became a stride, then a run, then a dance. The cracked village drum, hearing the borrowed drum's voice, shivered on its ropes and remembered it had a heartbeat. The baobab shook its leaves like a mother waking children for chores. Kwaku wiped rain from his face and cried because even joy can hurt when it has been far away. He cradled the drum and whispered thanks to whoever listened behind storms. But that night, the night market returned. It gathered itself from mist and whispers, set down its lanterns, and opened its toothy smiles. The old woman waited at her stall, a sign unchanged. Kwaku approached, dripping. "Nana, tomorrow is the 7th dawn," he said. "The rain listens." The old woman nodded, as if she had expected nothing else. "There's a thing you must know," she said. "Rain remembers favors. On the 8th dawn, return the drum. Walk the long path, and no matter who asks, do not play it for greed." "What does greed sound like?" Kwaku asked again. "It sounds like fear pretending to be hunger," she said. "Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget." On the 7th dawn, Kwaku beat the drum until the clouds did not argue, until the hens shook rain from their feathers and scolded their chicks, until the elders allowed themselves the luxury of a joke. The village filled pots. They sang while they worked, because singing makes water taste like home. That evening, when the market arrived like a secret you never had to keep, a stranger stepped out of its shimmering. He was taller than patience and thinner than a promise. His hat was woven from reeds that never got wet. He carried a sack that seemed small but sagged as if it were full of market days. His eyes were the color of bad intentions. "I have heard your drum," the stranger said, tipping his hat at Kwaku. "It is good, but why climb hills? Why sweat dawn after dawn? I can give you a path that goes straight from your hands to the sky's pockets. No climbing, no waiting." "What do you want for this path?" Kwaku asked. "Only to hold the drum for a while," the man said, smiling like a crocodile that had learned to sigh. Kwaku felt the baobab seed in his pocket grow warm, as if the old tree were clearing its throat. The memory of Mama Sewa's words nudged him. "Plant it when someone offers you a bargain that tastes like honey but leaves your tongue thirsty." So while the stranger talked about shortcuts that braided themselves and climbed the sky like vines, Kwaku knelt and pressed the seed into the earth beside the market's edge. "Just there?" the stranger asked, amused. "Just there," Kwaku said. The earth hummed. The seed pushed a green beak through dust and unfurled 1, 2, 3 leaves, each leaf marked with pale veins like the map of the river. The small plant raised itself and stood between Kwaku and the stranger, as if it had decided, politely, to be in the way. "I will keep the long path," Kwaku said, and the stranger's smile slid off his face, as if it had been tied on carelessly. He hissed a curse that would have boiled milk, had there been any, and vanished into the market's folds. "Good," said a voice behind Kwaku. The old woman from the drum stall stood there, her fish-scale eyes reflecting lantern light. "Short paths often lead to long regrets. Remember to return what you borrow." "I will," Kwaku said. At dawn, the old woman's gaze moved to the small plant. "Ah, your grandmother keeps wisdom in her pockets, I see." She touched the fledgling leaves. "This also will ask to be returned one day. Everything does. Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget." The 8th dawn came honey gold and gilt sweet. Kwaku climbed the hill with the drum in his arms. He had come to love the weight of it, the way it warmed his forearms, the way its cowrie shells clicked like teeth telling secrets. He set it down and breathed the morning, then lifted the drum to carry it back. Below, near the village, he saw something that didn't belong to that hour. People running, not toward water, but away. Goats bleated with the panic of creatures who read the earth better than elders do. Dust rose not as a dance, but as a warning. At the riverbank, a brown ribbon made shy by drought, stood the tall, stranger with the reed hat. He had a hollow gourd at his lips, carved with teeth and painted with eyes that wouldn't look straight at you. He was playing it, and the sound was not music. It was an ache rubbing against your bones. Where the sound went, the river's skin puckered, and water pulled itself up, up, up into the gourd, as if it were a snake charmed against its will. Frogs opened their mouths in silent questions. Fish flopped like scattered thoughts. The river sank into itself, smaller and smaller, until its stones lay naked and embarrassed in the light. Kwaku did not think. He ran down the hill, the drum thudding against his thigh, and planted himself between the stranger and the river's last gulp. "Stop!" he shouted. "You'll kill our farms!" The stranger lowered the gourd. Smiling, his crocodile smile returned to duty. "Ah, hill climber," he said, "I am only borrowing what no one owns. Isn't that your rule here? Borrow and return? I borrow a little rain into my gourd, then I sell it to thirsty people who don't like hills. They return it as tears. Such a tidy circle." "That is not a return," Kwaku said, hearing his grandmother's voice inside his chest. "That is a theft dressed in borrowed clothes." The stranger's eyes hardened, like mud baked too long in the sun. "Words, words," he said, and raised the gourd. Kwaku lifted the drum and struck it once, not in a rhythm he knew, but with the full, frightened palm of a boy who had decided he would not be careful today. "Toom," said the drum, and the sky flinched. The stranger's gourd faltered. The water it held trembled, hesitated, fell back in a braid of silver. He bared his teeth. "Drum or no drum," he said. "Paths or no paths, I am the hyena of the hollow gourd. I eat what others hide and sell what others need. Step aside." Hyena. So he was not a man after all, not in any way that mattered. Kwaku planted his feet as if he were growing roots. He struck the drum again, wishing he knew the tune that anger makes into rain. "Listen," said a voice to his left. It was the old drum hidden in the council hut, dragged there by elders who had found courage in the night. "We remember songs you haven't learned yet." An elder lifted his hands, palms calloused by years of harvest and disappointment, and clapped a slow pattern. Children joined, then women, then men, then the baobab with its leaf tremor. Toom-pa, toom-toom-pa. The rhythm grew, a road that lay itself down in front of their feet. Kwaku followed the rhythm. He closed his eyes and played as the hill taught him, as dawn taught him, as patience taught him. The drum grew very heavy and then very light, as if it were deciding whether to be a drum at all. The hyena hissed and blew into his gourd, harder, until the eyes painted on it rolled as if dizzy. The river shivered. Two sounds fought over it, the ache of the gourd and the promise of the drum. Water leaped up, fell back, leaped up, fell back again, like someone arguing with their own hunger. It reached into the gourd and found the river's true name, which the hyena had written backward to confuse it. The hyena gasped, because names are leashes when spoken right. The gourd cracked the way lies crack when they are needed to hold too much truth. Water rushed back to the river, whooped, laughed, slapped stones like old friends. Hyena's reed hat sagged. He dropped it and snarled, but his teeth looked like a necklace nobody wanted. He whirled and ran toward the night market as it began to fold itself. Sensing a story ending, it did not want to be trapped inside. Kwaku started after him, but the old woman was already there at the market's edge, one palm raised. "Go," she said to the hyena, "but leave your greed behind." The hyena stumbled, lighter by a weight he had thought invisible, and melted into the tangle of stalls that weren't there anymore. Only dust remained, and the smell of rain, and the memory of a gourd that could not hold what it tried to steal. Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget. Kwaku stood with the drum. He knew what the rule demanded. 7 dawns he had played. The 8th demanded a return. His arms ached with love and fatigue. The elders approached, wet to their knees from standing in the river, and laughing like people who have forgiven someone and remembered they were forgiving themselves. "Boy," said the oldest elder, whose hair was the color of ashen moonlight, "keep the drum. You have earned it. It would be safe here among us." The old woman appeared, as if from the corner of an eye. "Borrowed things must be returned," she said. "No anger, no heat, only a rule spoken like a lullaby." Kweku bowed. "Nana," he said, "I return your drum, full of what it has taught me. That long paths grow strong legs, that rain answers when its name is sung by many mouths, and that greed paints eyes on gourds so they can pretend to be watching." The old woman took the drum. It did not shrink in his hands or hers. It stayed exactly the size of what it had meant. "And what will you do with your empty arms?" she asked. "Fill them with a heavier thing," Kweku said, surprising himself. "What heavier thing is there than a drum that calls rain?" she asked. "Promises," Kweku said. "Good," the old woman said, as if that had been the answer on a slate somewhere. She turned to the elders. "Your river is stubborn. It will forget its name again if left to itself. Give it something to remember." "What should we give?" they asked. "A story that costs you," she said. "A thing you promise and must do." She pointed to the small plant by the market's edge, the baobab seedling that had chosen to be in the way. "Water this every day, even when rain is plentiful. When it grows, it will hold your promises in its shade." They agreed, because their hearts were still soft with relief. "Now," the old woman said, "the market must go." "Will we see you again?" Kweku asked. She gave him a look that reminded him of a river at night, there and also not there. "You always see what you borrow from," she said, "when you are paying it back." And the night market of borrowed things folded into the kind of place you go when you are not going anywhere. Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget. Seasons turned. The baobab seedling grew high enough to shade 2 goats, then 3. Birds began leaving messages in its branches, questions written in droppings and answered by leaves. The river forgot its name once, then again, because rivers are like people, and names sometimes hide under stones. Each time, the village gathered with palms and claps and Kweku's voice, and the old drum's patient thump, and they sang the river back into itself. People from other villages came to ask how it was done. Kweku told them something true. We learned the long path. We returned what was borrowed. We kept a promise alive, enough to make shade. He did not mention the market because some stories arrive only if you do not look for them. Children began to call Kweku Caller of Names, which is a better name than Boy Who Got Lucky Once. He did not grow proud so much as careful. He kept a small place in his heart for the weight of the drum he had returned, like a rune for a guest who visits only when roads need mending. One evening, he sat beneath the baobab, no longer a seedling, but a teenager practicing its gravity, and asked his grandmother, Mama Sewa, how do we know when we have truly returned something we borrowed? She smiled the way dusk smiles when it tries on night and decides to keep it. When the thing you returned comes to visit you again, she said, not because it must, but because it likes your company. As if on cue, clouds shouldered one another over the hill and lowered themselves into place as neatly as mats before a meal. Rain came with the easy authority of someone who knows where the cups are key. Kweku closed his eyes and felt it speak his name on his skin. Not like a shout, but like a friend tugging his sleeve. "You see," Mama Sewa said, "visitors come back where they were welcomed without being owned. Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget." Years later, how many the baobab's rings could tell you, the night market visited again. Not because of drought or danger, but because even markets grow curious about the people who remember their rules. It set itself down at the village edge with its lanterns and its carved gourds and its jars full of echoes. The old woman was older and also exactly the same. Her fish-scale eyes had added a few more rivers. The sign still said, "Borrowed things, fair terms, no complaints." Kweku, now with a beard that had negotiated a peaceful treaty with his chin, approached and bowed. "Nana," he said. "Caller of names," she said, tasting his new title. "Would you like to borrow anything?" "I have learned to borrow wisely," he said. "Today I come to return something else." "What have you been carrying this long?" she asked. "A question," Kweku said. "Who owns the rain?" The old woman laughed, and the laugh rattled cowries hidden in the hems of her thoughts. "No one. Not the sky, not the river, not the clouds, who are only houses, not the wind, who is only a messenger. Rain owns itself, but it likes to work where songs make room for it." Kweku nodded. "Then I return my question to the road, so others may pick it up." "Good," she said. "Here is my return." She pushed across the table a small, ordinary clay cup. "It will not catch rain better than your other cups. It will not keep water cooler than a calabash. It has only this trick. Whoever drinks from it remembers a promise they once made. You may find that a useful thirst." When it finally folded itself, as markets must, a sweet smell hung in the air like new palm wine. "Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget." When the baobab was big enough to shade the whole village at noon, children asked it riddles. Of course, it did not answer out loud. Trees are too polite for that. But if you watched its leaves when a question was good, you would see them tremble, the way a drummer's fingers do before the beat begins. If you ask the baobab what became of the hyena of the hollow gourd, it would point a leaf toward another village where a reed-hatted traveler mends broken fishing nets and never underprices his work. If you ask about the old woman, it would lift 2 branches and let the sun spill through, because some answers are made of light. If you ask about Kweku, the baobab would drop a single fruit at your feet. Open it, and you would find sweet pulp and black seeds that shine like tiny stories. Plant one, and perhaps a new market will come when you don't call it and offer you a bargain that tastes like honey. If that happens, remember the seed your grandmother gave you. Everyone has one, even if it is just a small, stubborn thought that says, "Walk the long path. Return what you borrow. Keep a promise until it grows shade." And when you tell this story, as you must if you have listened to it, remember the refrain. Listen well. We are listening. Let the road remember. We will not forget.